Hello bead babes, welcome to Beads Make Me Happy. My name is Christina and in this video we will be stringing up and crimping our colorful bone necklace kit. This kit comes in two different colorways. This more natural colorway called Sage and Bone and a more vibrant colorful version. I couldn't decide on silver or brass, so I opted for mixed metals and just used both. Our kits come with all of the beads and findings needed to create one 26 to 28-inch necklace. In this video, I'm going to be stringing up the colorful necklace. If you plan to copy this necklace bead for bead, put the postcard aside as a reference. There are 10 different beads used in this necklace. We have a variety of carved bone beads, silver and brass smooth saucer-shaped spacer beads, rainbow heishi beads, and some beautiful round black and white striped agate beads. Tools are not included in our kits. You will need a set of pliers to open and close your findings and a pair of wire cutters to trim your beading wire. We will be stringing our beads on a nylon-coated stainless steel beading wire called Softflex in size medium. This is a little bit heavier of a beading wire, but for beads that are this big with this large of a hole, it's nice to have a little extra strength. For the clasp, we have a stainless steel 2-inch extender chain with a stainless steel lobster claw. We will be attaching these with clamshell bead tips. Bead tips are these little Pac-Man shaped findings with the loops on the end. Also included are 4 crimp tubes. We technically only need 2, but I like to add extra in case of oopsies. There are also 2 jump rings to attach the lobster claw and chain to the bead tips. You'll need a pair of wire cutters to trim the beading wire and a set of pliers that are flat on the inside with no teeth. Something like a needle nose plier and a flat nose plier to twist open your jump rings and smash the crimp beads inside of the bead tips. The first thing we're going to do is a little designing. You can copy this design exactly bead for bead using the postcard as a guide, or you can come up with a completely unique design. I like to keep the larger, heavier beads towards the bottom. I'm going to start laying these beads out on my bead mat, starting at the bottom swoop of the necklace. As you're laying out your design, think about how you want the colors to balance. Do you want a color block and have chunks of the same colors? Do you want to space it out pretty evenly so the color is all spread out through the whole necklace? You can also think about pattern. I did small sections of different patterns. I found short sequences of beads that I liked and I did them section by section. You can also come up with one consistent pattern that runs through the whole necklace. Continue laying out your necklace until you feel ready to start stringing. No worries if you're not 100% sure about your design. That's what this next step is for. Go ahead and hit pause and come back when you're done with your layout. Now we're going to start stringing. This will give us a much better visual of how these beads sit next to each other. I'm going to start in the middle with the center bead. String it right onto the Softflex and bring it down to the center. I'm going to add a spacer on either side and continue stringing a couple beads on the right and a couple beads on the left, stringing up both sides of the necklace simultaneously. I do a few beads and then I hold it up and see how it looks. If I like it, I continue adding the next section. If I'm not feeling it, I take it off and try something new. I like to string necklaces this way so I have more freedom to change my mind. If I crimped this on one end and started stringing from the back and got all the way to the center and decided I didn't like it, I would have to take all of that off and start again. Starting at the bottom allows a little more space to be creative without the headache of having to take it apart and restring everything. I'm going to continue adding the next section or pattern of beads on one side and then on the other side, always stopping and checking if I like my design and making sure that they are symmetrical. Continue stringing on beads till you're happy with your necklace design. The max length of beads is 26 inches. You can definitely make the necklace shorter, but not longer. Make sure to leave 2 inches of soft flex on the end of each side, 4 inches total. We need this to crimp. All right, I am all done stringing my beads and I am ready to crimp. I'm going to move all of my extra beads aside, maybe string them up on some stretch cord for a little bracelet later. And then next I'm gonna double check that my beads are symmetrical. I'm gonna lay this flat, pinch them together, and just eyeball and make sure I've got all the same beads on both sides of the necklace. I need to know the length of this necklace to list it on our website. My total length came out to about 10.5 inches worth of beads on each side. The crimp beads and the crimping findings will add about a 1/2 inch on each side. So my total necklace length will be about 22 inches plus the 2-inch extender chain. So I'll list this as a 22 to 24-inch necklace. Now it's time to crimp this baby up. So this is probably the most important step of this whole video. Take a tiny piece of tape and fold it over the end of your necklace. You do not want your beads sliding and falling off when you're trying to focus on crimping. Over on the untaped side, we are going to start out by sliding on one clamshell bead tip. Imagine this little finding is an open Pac-Man mouth. You want to go through the back of his head and come out of his mouth. Next, slide on one crimp bead and one jump ring. We are using the jump ring to catch the wire so we don't accidentally pull it all the way through. Keep in mind that the jump ring does have an opening. The wire could slip through, so make sure to use the side that doesn't have that opening. Fold the wire so it's passing around the jump ring and back down into the crimp bead and into the bead tip. Gently pull on the tail of the wire and cinch the crimp bead down into the mouth of the bead tip. You want the wire to be pretty snug around that jump ring, but not so tight that you won't be able to get that jump ring out for the next step. With the crimp bead as close to the bead tip as possible, use your needle nose pliers to smash the whole crimp bead. Give it one good squeeze. Maybe flip it over, give it another good squeeze. You don't want to completely hulk out and use all your might, but you do want to give this a pretty tight crimp. Give it a tug and make sure your crimp is secure and the wire does not slip out. If it does, remove the crimp bead and all findings and try again. This is why we added a couple extra just in case. Next, we're going to twist open the jump ring and loop it into the bead tip. We will need to slide it on one side of the jump ring and then the other. I just want to say this is a little awkward to hold and get into the loop, so it is totally normal to feel a tad clumsy here. My jump ring fell out. So I'm going to grab onto one side of the jump ring, slide it into the loop of the beading wire, and then into the bead tip loop. Pinch the bead tip closed a little bit with your fingers. Maneuver that one side of your jump ring into the loop of the bead tip. Shift your pliers to the other side of the jump ring, the side that is looped into the bead tip. Maneuver the opposite side of the jump ring into the other side of the bead tip. Slip on the last loop of the extender chain onto the jump ring and twist the jump ring back closed. You can use your needle nose pliers to close the clamshell all the way. You're not trying to smash it, just close it nice and tight. Slide the excess wire back down into all the beads and push the beads down towards the bead tip. Now we're going to crimp off the other side. When crimping the second side, I like to lay my piece in a circle, kind of wrap bracelet-like shape on my bead mat. This helps with the tension. If you crimp this necklace, laying flat in a straight line, it will be so tight that when you pick it up, the beads will be stiff like a stick with no movement. So lay the necklace in a little circular pile before crimping so it won't be too tight. The process for finishing off this side is exactly the same as the other side. We just have to make sure that the beads are tight enough to not have any slack or wire showing, but not so tight that the necklace is stiff. Before I string on all my findings, I needed to close my jump ring up a little bit so that the wire doesn't just slip right out that opening. First, string on one clamshell bead tip. String the wire through the back of the Pac-Man head and into the mouth. String on one crimp tube and one jump ring. Push the bead tip and the crimp tube down as close to the beads as possible. Pass the wire around the jump ring and back into the crimp bead and into the bead tip. Pull the wire all the way through and tighten. This is going to take quite a bit of wiggling and adjusting. Pull the wire down, push the crimp bead. You can even hold on to the jump ring with your pliers if that helps. Do whatever adjustments you need to do to get that crimp bead and the bead tip as close to the beads as possible with the wire nice and tight. You don't want to see any wire showing between the bead tip and the beads. You can hold this end of the necklace up a little bit and see if there's any wire showing between the bead tip and the beads. If there is, just keep pulling on that little tail and pulling on the bead tip, adjusting the location of the crimp bead until this side is nice and tight. Give that tail a good tug against the jump ring and use your needle nose pliers to smash the crimp bead. Flip it over and give it a couple more tight squeezes and make sure that crimp is nice and secure. Pass that excess wire down through a few of those beads. You can go through 3, you can go through a ton of them. You can pass all of that wire back down through the beads if you want, but 3 or 4 beads is sufficient. Next, you're going to hook that jump ring into the bead tip and attach the lobster claw. Make sure the jump ring is also still being strung through the beading wire. Slide one end of the jump ring through one side, switch your pliers, and then slide the other end of the jump ring in the other side, using your pincher fingers to close that bead tip as needed. Slide the loop of that lobster claw onto one side of the jump ring and twist your jump ring back closed. Cut off that excess wire and enjoy your colorful necklace. You can find this kit as well as the other colorways Sage and Bone on our website, beadsmakemehappy.com.